Hi everyone, welcome to episode 10 of the Startup Playbook Podcast. My name is Rohit Bhargava, and each week I interview successful founders, investors, and subject matter experts on how they got started, the strategies they use to succeed, and their advice to current and future entrepreneurs. Now, if you've ever wanted to get into blogging or content marketing, or just wanted to get better, you will love this episode. In this episode, I interview Sujan Patel, a data-driven marketer and entrepreneur who currently runs 3 different businesses to help marketers create content and scale their marketing efforts. Sujan is an avid writer and a regular contributor to publications such as Forbes, Wall Street Journal, Inc., and Entrepreneur Magazine. And if that wasn't enough, he's also written a book titled 100 Days of Growth, which has sold over 30,000 copies last year alone. At the end of this episode, I'll share the code and the link to get you a free copy of Sujan's book. In this episode, Sujan shares how he built his personal brand, his process for creating daily long-form content, how to create shareable content, and how to distribute your content as wide as possible. I had a blast interviewing Sujan, and I'm sure you'll enjoy it too. Without further ado, here is my interview with Sujan Patel. Hi Sujan, welcome to the Startup Playbook Podcast.
Hey, thanks for having me. Super excited to talk to you.
Yeah, thanks for joining us all the way from Austin. At the moment, I assume it's a little bit warmer over there than it is here in Melbourne.
Yeah, it's a little too hot here. It gets into like the 30s Celsius. So I much prefer the Melbourne weather.
I guess let's get into it. For people that aren't as familiar with your background, can you tell us a little bit about yourself?
Yeah, so I've been doing digital marketing for about 13 years now, actually coming on 14. And I've been a part of a lot of various businesses. And what's unique about my background is that one side I've worked on the agency side. So I've had a marketing agency, and I'm actually back to it, but I'll get to that later. And the other half I've worked in-house. So as like a head of marketing, or actually start off as an SEO, and then kind of broaden my scope to all things marketing as really the world of SEO has expanded to becoming a T-shaped marketer. And so having both sides, I still like the volume of and the surge and the chaos of having an agency where you have multiple clients, you're doing lots of things. Think, Mad Men, but less cool. Very rarely do you come with a great idea when you're drinking in the middle of the day, smoking cigarette, but that's the sexier version of it. And then the other end, working with SaaS companies or internet businesses, just running their marketing. So very, very depth. And I've kind of combined both of those lives into one where, now I'm running actually a Sydney-based business, or partnered with a Sydney-based business, Web Profits, and bringing that company to the US. So we're a marketing agency, and we do a lot of growth stuff. And I also have a couple, and I say a couple, I mean 4 SaaS businesses.
Just a few?
Just a few. I figured, when you have 3, what's one more, right? But yeah, it's kind of crazy enough to start 2 at the same time last year, which was contentmarketer.io and narrow.io. Both of them I'm co-founded with developing technical co-founders. So I've been, as a marketer, I have all these ideas. I want to build something, and I found 2 awesome people last year that finally would want to partner with me, and we're good at it and building. And so I was like, yeah, we'll just do both. Full disclosure, I'm doing another one as well. And look, no worries. It takes time to build stuff. I'll just do the marketing analytics thing on my hands and feet. And so both of them I did. They both started working immediately. We got to product market fit almost immediately. And Content Marketer is at around 5,000 customers. Narrow.io is around 2,000. Surprisingly, both kind of similar revenue standpoints. And then I started getting involved. I got addicted to this high, and so of growing companies and owning part of them. So I joined as a part owner to a company called QUU.co, which is a content curation. It's almost like the other end of what Narrow does on the Twitter side. So again, all of these companies have a similar audience. It's marketers, social media, content marketers, B2B SaaS. So although they're different tools, different solutions, we really have a singular marketing strategy. And a lot of what I do in one avenue, or even for myself on my personal brand correlates the growth of all three companies. So it is kind of crazy, but at the same time, it's actually, I'm getting multiple benefits from one marketing effort.
Sure. I wanted to get into your projects a little bit deeper, but just taking a step back, was there anything that instigated you working in the agency to you starting your own projects and starting your own startups?
Yeah, honestly, I wanted to go deeper, right? Like, I love helping companies grow, but I very rarely get to see all parts of inside of a company and get that exact, like that same excitement of like, this is mine, right? And I think, I know I could, if I were to spend this time I spent on Content Marketer, I probably could have doubled my agency in size, but I'm looking for, real passion and real what is it called? Just fulfillment, right? As a person, a human being, I want to feel like I did something. And creating a product, especially SaaS, like you feel like you've actually seen this thing grow. And so that's really what started, or like what's the energy behind the thoughts behind why I did it. But really, I think part of this is also proving that I could do it, right? So I just kind of started like, let's test this thing out. I will put in my extra time and energy into this. And at the same time, my wife was getting her MBA, so she was really busy with school. And I was like, I'm bored, so I'll do something. So I have major ADD, so I need to keep myself occupied 100% of the day, or I will be bored.
Absolutely. I feel like that's a common trait. Whenever entrepreneurs are bored, we find ways to kind of build stuff. Generally. So on that, I guess again, kind of diving a little bit deeper into that transition, what was it like, moving from an agency setting where projects are coming to you then having to go out and find your first few clients? Was it a difficult process, and what were some of the things that you kind of used to help get the first few clients on board?
Actually, it wasn't that difficult at all. So I knew I wanted to build an agency. Sorry, I wanted to go from an agency, or I wanted to go from doing consulting to really going into the SaaS and kind of customer side. So client to customer, right? Where customers, you need a lot more volume. And so I actually, instead of, as really an SEO and inbound marketer by trade, like that's kind of what my background is early on. I wanted them to come to me. So I didn't want to go to people. I didn't want to do as much outreach and advertising and whatnot. So before I built the company, I built hype around the idea. I built hype around the problem. And I started building my personal brand so that people would know me as a product or SaaS founder and take me more seriously than just an agency guy, right? I've been known as a marketer for decently. So Content Marketer IO came out the first, and Nero both came out in summer of 2015. January 2015, I launched an ebook on growth hacking. And so I found this unique angle on growth hacking, which now, fast forward 18 months later, everybody talks about it. Not news. Most people still don't know what it means or use it incorrectly. But frankly, it's kind of at the peak of its popularity, where I predicted it was going to be on the up and up. And so I wrote a book on it. And I used that to build my brand and build an audience and talk about that I'm going to be launching a software soon. And so that was my hype and thing I did to then build the brand and awareness to the SaaS businesses, and generated kind of a lot of that lead magnet. And again, like knowing that something is going to come out. And in fact, funny story is that we didn't write a line of code or build anything until we had about 1,000 people interested in buying the product. And we can validate that there's demand for the problem that we're solving.
Sure, absolutely. So apart from writing the ebook, are there any other strategies for people who are listening who might be in a similar position to where you were, that they can use to build their own brand or build hype around what it is that they plan to do, whether that's their own agency or more consulting work, or launching their own software product?
Yeah. So another thing I did, or actually I did a couple things. So I also started working in building a community of marketers. So at the end of the day, Narrow and Content Marketer IO kind of sell to a very similar audience, marketers. And so I started connecting with other marketers, not not in terms of like, let's buy my product. I'm launching this. Let's grab lunch, super informal. Let's grab coffee. First, it was local people, and keep in mind, I was in the Midwest of the United States, in Minnesota. There is, at the time I launched these companies, there is no advantage to being in the middle of the country. I wasn't in a sexy area like Bay Area, New York, with this volume of people, but yet I was able to connect with a lot of people, pick their brains, talk about what I'm doing, what I'm working on, really build relationships. I did this online and I maintained the relationships using Slack. I did this offline and I did dinners everywhere I traveled for work, or everywhere I traveled for fun. I would literally just email some of the top marketers or ping them on LinkedIn and ask them if they're interested in joining dinner on one day. I'd grab like 5, 10 people together and throw a marketing dinner together. I did this a couple dozen times and built up a good relationship with lots of people, and that was one part of it. The other thing is, along with that, I had a hypothesis that Content Marketer IO is going to sell to bloggers. It's going to sell to writers who want to do more content marketing, content marketers, people that are in-house, or marketers that are in-house at a company. And so I started talking to those people as well and said, hey, look, building this product, would love to get you in our beta, or can I pick your brain? I'll buy you coffee, whatever. Insert some sort of an incentive. So I started talking to them. So that really helped me understand the customer. And I think, frankly, too many companies are founded with and built without understanding the customer. And I'm saying, know what their dog's name is, understanding them. Like, you want to know what they wear to bed, right? That's a weird thing to say, but you want to know them intimately at the end of the day. And then the last thing I did is I started investing in building my personal brand, much like I did with the ebook. And what I used the ebook for, actually a year and a half before, again, the software company was launched, 2014 January, I started consistently producing content, blogging at the end of the day. At first, didn't really know who I was talking to, why I was writing, or not necessarily why, but what I should be writing about. Over time, I refined that. Really, it's just practice makes perfect. And then I started getting savvy of who to write to. But it's literally 2 years of consistently producing content helped me build a brand, which allowed me to do the talking to customers, which allowed me to do the marketing dinners, which allowed me to write a book and have an audience to launch. And again, I hustled hard to get the book sales. So it wasn't for having a brand that like magically things happened. It was like I pushed the book really hard and I gave it everything I had. That's all that combined. What helped me build a mass audience to these startups.
Sure. And in terms of your brand, you're a weekly contributor to Forbes, Entrepreneur.com, Inc.com, and a regular contributor to the Wall Street Journal. How did you bring these? Get those sort of exposure opportunities. How did you set these contribution sort of partnerships up with these organizations?
Yeah. So, and this is actually a common question I get asked. I'll send you a link to a video that kind of describes it in my full length process. But simply put, it's working your way up the food chain. To write for these places. So first, I didn't really get invited. I kind of begged some of these places to write for them, right? So all these places, most sites want free content. That's just the large publications can get free content from contributors who are pretty much using it to build their brand, really just get influence in their space. I worked my way to write for these sites. I started at small sites. I actually started my own blog, SujanPatel.com. And then I started writing for some industry blogs or other company blogs. And I got a couple wins there. When I say wins, I mean hundreds of shares. It looks like, I made it a win for the receiving party. So I did guest posts, and then I did guest posts on higher caliber sites, and then I did guest posts on larger sites, and worked my way up to write for the big industry blogs, like in content marketing would be Content Marketing Institute. So that gave me more exposure, and I did 2 or 3 articles for each kind of level. So level one is your own site, medium.com or LinkedIn, where anybody can produce content. Level 2 is a company blog or an industry blog that essentially somewhat has a network. And then level 3 is a popular or a leading industry blog, meaning you want to find like the top 3 sites in the industry. And then level 4 is pitching second tier kind of publications, think Business Insider or Huffington Post. They're a little easy to get into, but what you're pitching is essentially, hey, I'm a good writer. I have a unique voice on insert why you're unique, and here's my resume. And it's not a long resume that you would send your CV to a job application. It's more of 3 to 5 articles that you've written in the past that have done well, that showcase your writing skills. And you want to showcase the things you've done on level 1, level 2, level 3 blogs. But you can't go from level 1, writing your own blog, to writing for Forbes. It will never happen unless you know somebody. And even then, like, you're not going to beat the 15,000 people that are waiting in line. So it is a process. It took me actually 5 years to do, but after kind of looking back, you can really do it in 12 to 18 months. And again, consistency is very, very important. So you can't just go out there and write 1 or 2. You need to show and build a case that you are a good writer. You have something unique to say, different than the million other content pieces out there. And 3, that when you write, you can get page views and shares and exposure, because frankly, that is what makes the recipient, the Forbes, the Inks of the world, money, right? So those are kind of the key ingredients.
Sure. And on the consistency aspect, for you personally, how often do you put out content?
Right now, I'm producing probably around 5 or 6 articles a week. It is pretty insane how much content I write, but I love it. It's kind of it's fun for me. I have a really good process of how I write. I actually start writing with recording myself talking, and then I move that into transcribe that into articles, into written form of content, and then from there I'll actually what is it called? Expand it. I'll add research, and I have somebody who helps me on the research side, and so it's kind of a unique process that works really, really well for me.
Sure. On the transcribing the audio to text, are there any particular tools that you recommend or that you use yourself?
I hire local college students. I don't use tools.
Okay.
And there's one key advantage to hiring people versus tools, is that when I get a transcribe, I don't just say, hey, transcribe my words into written words. They review it, and they highlight in red. This is kind of my process. They highlight in red things that could be tightened up, could be expanded on, or sometimes just doesn't make sense. So pretty much red means I need to review it and make damn sure it's really good and it needs to be there. Yellow means it needs research, and that means I need to find a couple examples, or I have to instruct my transcriber, which my intern, essentially, to do a little bit more research and find examples. And green means it's good. Maybe I can expand there too, but really, that's great. So, like I said, this process here, it takes 10 minutes of recording and turns it into a 3,000 word article, and it's kind of goes. I keep kind of adding to it, and then at the end, one of my weaknesses, and frankly, because I wasn't born in the U.S. I was actually born in India. English is my second language, and so grammar and spelling and punctuation and sentence structure, I suck at that, frankly. Um, that's for a smarter, better person. So, frankly, I hired an editor, and that person essentially cleans out my sentence structure, makes sure my grammar is correct and appropriate. They also help me adjust my tone, and this is kind of more feedback. And working with the editor, I got better at this. So by hiring somebody that's excellent at it, it forced me to actually become better at it. So now it requires very little editing, but it's almost like I took a crash course in communications and writing.
Yeah, learning by doing.
Yeah, honestly, you can teach me. And again, I know myself pretty well, and it's I think one of my skills I've been inherently good at is like just kind of seeing what I'm good and bad at. And I know that if I take a class or I try to learn not by doing, I will never do it. But if I learn by actually doing, I'll make sure I become great at it, because there's no point in doing things badly. So like, here's actually funny story. I spoke at a conference years ago in Brazil, and I was invited last minute, but I somehow ended up keynoting this thing, and I was like, holy crap. Okay, I'll keynote, and like I had very little speaking experience, but they wanted me to talk about growth hacking. It was a sexy topic, so they figured they'd reach out. Obviously I've been known as a growth hacker. I have a brand for that, but anyways, I bombed. Well, at least I thought I did. But I took that video and I really sliced it up and got lots of feedback, and I suck less at public speaking, but and by the way, at the time I went to speak, I was scared to death of public speaking. So I conquered my fears, but I actually ended up doing a good job at it because my content was good. So, at the end of the day, why I'm telling you this is that if you have really, really good content, something like the meat of your stuff is really good, you can get better at the rest of that stuff. So it sounds daunting, but it focus on that meat and get help and hire people to help surround on the rest of the stuff and polish it up.
Sure. In terms of creating good content, one of the I guess when we first met, you were delivering a workshop in Melbourne, and one of the things that you talked about was only creating content that is shareable. Is there any particular process that you can share that you would say would help people find content or titles or things like that would become shareable to people or valuable for other people to read?
Yeah, I mean, at the end of the day, I like to do two things to find and really find who my audience is, and do my research. So first and foremost, make sure whatever you want to write about. Let's just talk about writing great content that's unique. Google basic keywords around your idea. Google the exact headline you came up with and see what else is out there. I guarantee there's always something out there. And see, like if you're in Australia, a lot of people say, oh, like there's not that many people doing the latest and greatest here. Well, Google, use the US search engine or use another country. You can always find it and essentially find out what everyone else has done and make sure your content is significantly better than that. So like that's the number one rule is like somehow make your content better than that. And that somehow, let's solve for somehow now. The somehow should be you should have a unique angle, meaning a unique voice. Maybe everyone has talked about, mathematics here in a complex, here's how you do math way. And you talk about why you should do math instead of how, right? So like you have a unique angle. The other way is what I like the company called The Hustle, thehustle.co, I believe. They're writing on they have like I think they have 100 million page views a year site, and they built it very, very quickly. And that's because they had a unique angle to very interesting stories. And so telling a story always works really well, adding your personal experience. And again, just making your articles really, really actionable help. And the last piece outside of the unique voice is making sure you actually think of content promotion and how you're going to promote the content before you write a single word. So too many people spend most of their time writing content when really in content marketing and really successful content marketing campaigns, the writing, the what of the content marketing, you spend 20% of your time on. The 80% should be on the promotion of it. So, it sounds silly, but most people just don't spend enough time promoting it. And it starts at the beginning. Most people don't spend enough time thinking about how they can promote it before they write it so that they can bake in promotion into the article, meaning include influencers, include successful brands, include stories in it, right? Like go and reach out to people like the brands or people like companies that are big names in the space and get their buy-in. And it sounds hard, but a simple email, a simple tweet, or a simple message on Facebook can do the trick. People like getting free press, and making people look good always works. The exact opposite is true too. However, I'd shy against pissing too many people off, but it still works. And again, do lots of outreach and build a community and build a network of people to help you. Like right now, I invested last year I invested a lot of time into building a community of marketers, getting to know people on a personal level, and some of them are my customers. And now I can sit back because a lot of those guys know me, and they will essentially share my content. So it's not like I'm not doing anything today. It's that I built up a platform, an audience that will be doing heavy lifting for me.
Sure. In terms of using influencers and maybe potentially writing them or quoting them, would you reach out to them before you write the article or once it's done?
If you're just getting started, cite them from something they've said on the web,
mm-hmm.
and then reach out to them later. If you're kind of have already been doing this for a while, it's okay to reach out to them up front. Just know that people are pretty busy, right? And so although you think you're doing them a favor, being the recipient of like 10 requests a day, you're not.
Sure.
So it's not that you're not, but it's just it takes a lot of work for somebody to answer a question and give you 100 words on any topic. So it does take some time. So cite them, grab a quote instead of asking them, "Hey, do you have anything unique to say about this topic?" or whatever. Say, "Hey, I saw you said this. Can I use this quote on my blog?" That is easier. Then it's a yes/no answer, and I guarantee you'll get a better response rate and more people responding because all they have to say is 3 letters, yes, or no, 2 letters, no.
Sure. Fantastic. And I guess just coming back to the projects that you're working on at the moment, can you share with our listeners in a little bit more detail what each of them do and how they can follow up if they're interested?
Yeah. So ContentMarketer.io is actually a content promotion software. It allows you to do email outreach to people you've mentioned in an article, as well as find the contact information. So that's the essence of that software. There's a lot of other companies out there that do a good job, but we have a unique take, and it's specifically designed for marketers. We also do training. So one of the things I learned early on about the product and the audience is that most people don't need help doing content marketing. They don't know how to even do content marketing. So that's why we added the bootcamp and the training and the courses, as well as services, so that we can just essentially do all things content marketing through that brand. The other business, Narrow.io, is essentially a way to build up your Twitter following. I know the Twitter sphere is not huge in Australia, and many people say it's dying. And yeah, it probably is dying, but they have 100 million plus users. They're not going to go and disappear overnight. So Narrow helps you build up your Twitter following, and by doing some automated tasks in the back end for you. And then Q is kind of the opposite end of that. It helps you curate content and people submit content, they find really good content, and you can subscribe to various categories. And essentially will fill up your social media feeds, Twitter, Facebook, LinkedIn, Google Plus. It connects with Buffer with really great content and essentially make you look like a hero. And oddly enough, or not oddly enough, but I actually tested it on a brand new account the other day and using Narrow to build up the Twitter following and Q to share really good content and curate content. And just by doing those two things alone, I'm actually getting like 30 visitors to my site.
Wow.
Did nothing to promote it. All I'm doing is fully automated. All I did in the beginning was send a note to my Facebook audience, like my personal friends on Facebook saying, hey, I'm launching this company. And ever since then, I've been getting consistently 30 visitors, 3/4 of which are from Twitter and LinkedIn, which I've never said a word on. So it works.
Yeah, absolutely. And Web Profits as well. So that's the company that was originally based in, it's part based in Sydney and part based in the US.
Yeah, so I run the US division. So I almost forgot about that. Thanks for reminding me. So Web Profits, we're a growth marketing agency. So we do a lot of the new age growth. I mean, realistically, growing and marketing your business in 2016 and beyond is much, much different than it's ever been, right? Like 5 years ago, Facebook ads was not as big as AdWords. Now you could do Facebook ads and build $100 million business. So, we are very much the cutting edge of kind of marketing. We do a lot of content marketing. We do a lot of product marketing. I mean, some of the stuff we do it's not even worrying about top of the funnel bringing visitors in. It's about converting people. So we do some conversion optimization. We work with the product team or development teams to include marketing elements in there.
Sure. So I'll make sure that the links to all of your different projects and everything that we've discussed about is in the show notes. But obviously juggling 4 companies, I mean, they all overlap a fair amount, but juggling 4 different projects can get, very, very onerous. How do you find juggling those different projects, and what does your typical day look like?
Yeah, so that's a great question. So the short answer is I call it's a controlled chaos in my life. What I mean by that is there are kind of elements to where the businesses can run. One, I have business partners on every one of my companies, and that's intentional because I need great people. They help round my weaknesses out. We have really good staff to help me do a lot of the day-to-day stuff. And what we do is we really focus on the SaaS side of the businesses. I focus on the 3 to 5 things every month that are our biggest opportunities. And I also focus on our 3 biggest weaknesses. I'm actually writing a blog post on my 3x3 framework. It's called 3 Biggest Weaknesses and 3 biggest opportunities that month or quarter, year, whatever, and 3 biggest pain points. And we only do that. There are probably hundreds of things we're missing out on, but by focusing very specific, we only put in time that matters and can move the needle. So we get really big growth month over month. And on the agency side, again, we have a really good team. And honestly, I love what I do, right? So I actually wake up at 6 a.m. every morning. You find me before I go to bed, like answering emails or working and coming up with ideas. And I'm mostly involved on the client side, on the agency side, on the strategy, and the execution is really done by my excellent staff. I'm involved on a week-to-week level in the strategy, but the day-to-day I don't really have to do as much of. So I get to do all the strategy, the fun stuff, the mind-boggling stuff, but and also the stressful stuff sometimes. But it keeps it very interesting.
Sure. And for our listeners, do you have any tips on how to get a good team around you?
Yeah. So figure out your weaknesses, right? Like figure out what you suck at. So for example, like here's a tangible one. I am not a very organized person. I mean, project management wise. I don't like structure. In fact, I'm the opposite. So what I need to scale my businesses, especially if I'm going to be handling multiple things, is project management. I need structure. So I'm looking for people who are like rock stars organized and that can work with people that are not structured. And so how do you find good people? Look, it's the same thing for how do you find customers? Connect with them before you need to hire them. So I invest a lot in my community and just meeting people. And a lot of times I get recommendations of, hey, I remember you were saying you were struggling with this, and they just recommend me a solution. So again, start networking. It's the key to having, essentially growing in any business. But start networking with people, start helping people, and over time, you'll have helped enough people where when you need help, you won't have to ask for it. That's a quote from some book, but I live my life by it.
Absolutely. In terms of helping people as well, just briefly wanted to touch on the book that you have, The 100 Days of Growth as well. Do you want to talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, so 100 Days of Growth, I mean, so it's a book on growth hacking. That's one the key book I used to kind of really build up my brand. I think no one really knew my name before that. And I don't know that many people do today, but a few thousand more probably. But yeah, so it's a book on growth hacking. It's super, super tactical. What I wanted was a Rolodex of ideas. And, I think the book serves that purpose. If you're looking to, the hardest part about marketing is taking action. And I feel like that's most people's problems. And so the book is really intended of like, here's 100 ideas you can do to grow your business. Literally pick one. If it makes sense for your business, go do it. And it's like the basic steps of how to do it. And it also includes examples of ideas of other people. It's to date, it's sold about 37,000 copies.
Wow.
So super, super pumped about that. I mean, it's, I like one of the things I love to do is just help and educate people and get people to take action. And so that's the kind of stuff I try to write more around.
Sure. Was there anything that you used to create the book as well?
Embarrassingly, yes. I used Apple Keynote, which is the second tier, PowerPoint presentation software. We bought the original version of the original version of the book was created with that on Keynote using some template and a $1 stock image that we bought of this like plant growing, and it was like this small little seed all the way to growing into a fruitful plant from left to right, as if it was a chart of a rapid growing company. So the recommendation is iterate, create it on Word documents, right? Who cares? Use Google Doc, get the stuff out there, start taking action. Go on like Canva or Upwork and get somebody to design something decent, like a decent cover. Who cares if it's ugly? My first version was so embarrassingly ugly that I'm still embarrassed today, but I'm embracing it. And iterate. If people start to buy your book, if the content is good, meaning even if your presentation sucks, if the content's good, people are going to talk about it. Then iterate to make your best looking version of the book. So what you see of 100 Days of Growth right now is our fourth iteration. So iterate, just as if you were going to build a company, and get out there tomorrow, not in a year from now. Perfect.
Sure. Was there any specific strategies that you used to distribute the book out once you did have the very first copy?
Yeah, let's see. There's so much. It's like a whole conversation of its own. I'm going to send you a link of how I sold my first 10,000 copies. I used Slack networks. I was able to kind of get my way on Product Hunt. Again, Slack is a very, very powerful tool. There's lots of communities. There's a site called chitchat.co, I think. Mm-hmm. Or if you just Google chitchat Slack, there's lots of directories. But there's Slack channel for everything. I found a couple founder ones. I found a couple SaaS ones. I found a couple marketing ones. I got in there, network with the right people. When I mean right people is the open channels. And I said, hey guys, I'm writing this book. I asked people to get feedback. I got their feedback, but secretly, now in hindsight, I'm telling you guys, is that I wanted not just their feedback, I wanted them to help me promote it. So after I got their feedback, when it was closer to being out, I could say, hey guys, thanks for your feedback. The book is live. Would you mind sharing it? I also strategically included 500 people in the book, not just like 500 names, but I included 500 authors. I included 300 in each tactic, each page. There's examples of companies doing a good job, and there's examples of articles that you can read more about to how to execute on it. I reached out to everybody under the sun that was included in the book, and I gave them a free copy. And most of the time, and I asked for feedback again. And I did this over like a 6-week period, and they all slowly but surely shared it, and that generated hundreds of shares. And that was the initial launch strategy, which then got me on Product Hunt. I eventually reached out to like AppSumo and did a deal with them. Mighty deals. So there's like distribution networks that can help you out. I went and did guest posts on every blog under the sun that talked ever about growth hacking. I also answered questions on Quora around growth hacking. And I answered almost every question I could find on growth hacking. And that actually ended up generating about a few thousand sales in the early days. Product Hunt got a few thousand shares in the early days. Kind of reaching out to people each time. Reaching out to people that were mentioned in the book got me about 2,000 sales. Connecting to people on Slack, that was the first 500. That was the hardest sales I got. That was the first kind of initial sales. And again, we didn't write any part of the book until we got about 100 sales. And we again, fake it till we make it. We made a landing page on Instapage. You can use lead pages, Unbalanced. There's so many different tools you can use. Create a landing page, pretend like you're writing a book, get validation, actually write the book. Now, when I say pretend, write some part of it, or figure out what you want to write about. Don't just sell an idea. You have to make it look good, but polish it up. And again, same thing as my initial version of the book. Our initial landing page was embarrassingly shitty. It was really bad. But like I said, I had something to show people, because when I told people, hey, I'm writing a book on growth hacking. Oh, cool. You have a link? Or, hey, can you tell me more? And I could tell them more. So at least have some of that information down.
Absolutely. And so for our listeners who are interested in reading the 100 Days of Growth, what's the best way for them to get a copy?
Yeah, so check out 100daysofgrowth.com, and I'll send you a coupon code. I think it'll be on the bottom of this podcast or whatnot, and you'll get a free copy.
Perfect. Excellent. Thanks for that. So I'll make sure that the links and the discount code goes in the show notes, which will be available on startupplaybook.co. So Sujan, finally, we're almost out of time, but I wanted to get your thoughts on Snapchat. Last time you were here, we were talking, and I think you just sort of started your Snapchat journey. How are you finding that as a user and as a marketing channel?
Yeah, so I think, well, I love Snapchat still. So I've been using it now, I think 3-4 months consecutively. It's a great way to engage with your existing community. So I like it to really just connect with people that I've already been talking to. So I integrate Snapchat as the unfiltered version of me. Part of it is 50% is reality TV, meaning it's behind the scenes of what I'm doing on the weekends, or if I had a hard day, I'm just gonna do a snap on man, this day sucks, insert why. And then the other half is really good information. I share my latest blog posts. I share articles and ideas for articles I'm writing, but my content calendar is so far ahead that like that article may come out in a month or two. I share that instantly. So it's like really just like unfiltered raw version of content and information. And all I'm doing that for is to educate and continue to communicate with my community and build that relationship, right? So I'm doing it as a way for relationship marketing. I don't even know if that's a thing, but essentially it's to build a relationship with people that are in my audience, so they feel like they know me. And from the feedback I've gotten so far, it seems to be working. Meaning, I'm getting people in real life saying, "Oh yeah, I saw you. That Snapchat you sent about you being scared to death of spiders and then hunting it down with the fork and accidentally, falling was hilarious." Like, so it's very, very specific stuff, and in real, having those real life conversations is really how I measure it. So, short version is I measure it using the engagement I get from it.
Great. Perfect. So if anyone wants to find out more about you, your story, or get in touch, what's the best way for them to do that?
Yeah, so it'd be hard to miss me, to be honest. I'm on Twitter a lot. It's at Sujan Patel. You can also go to my website, sujanpatel.com. Most of my content's there. But if you subscribe to my newsletter, I share all the content I write on Forbes, Inc., and kind of other places as well. And then check out the books, and you'll have a code to get it for free in the show notes. So be sure to check out the website.
Fantastic. Great. Thanks a lot for your time, Sujan, and sharing your tactics on growth and all things marketing.
Yeah, thanks for having me. Super pumped.
Pleasure having you. Cheers. Thanks for listening to episode 10 of the Startup Playbook Podcast. You can find the show notes of my interview with Sujan, along with a curated list of tools and resources for startup founders at startupplaybook.co. As always, you can join the conversation through our Twitter account. The handle is @PlaybookStartup. As promised, you can pick up your free copy of The 100 Days of Growth by Sujan Patel by using the code The Startup Playbook Podcast, all one word and all in lowercase, at gumroad.com and searching for The 100 Days of Growth, or alternatively, just use the link and code provided at startupplaybook.co. And the fun doesn't stop there. Next week, I interviewed Tristan Pollock, named by Forbes as one of their 30 under 30 for 2015. Tristan is the entrepreneur in residence and venture partner at 500 Startups. He exited his first company and is now the co-founder of Storefront, which has raised funding from celebrities and influencers such as Gary Vaynerchuk and Nas, with Storefront counting other influencers like Kanye West as clients of their platform. In the interview, Tristan shares his insights on building marketplaces, getting celebrity and influencer investors, what companies looking to raise funding in the US need to do, and his thoughts on opportunities in verticals such as Vice Tech. Don't forget to subscribe to stay up to date with our latest episodes. Thank you for listening, and I will see you at episode 11 next week.